Hey there everyone, my name is Wesley Verheij. I'm the owner and founder of Sekora Music, and here are some do's and don'ts of getting your track signed to your favorite melodic house record label. So before sending your track to your favorite label, there's a couple of tips I can give you from my personal experience as an artist, but also as a record label owner. Try to make it personal. Don't go over aggressive on the details, but try to find some sort of personal connection. Maybe if you have a friend that has released with a label, you can use them as an intro to the label. But before you actually send your music, there's also a couple of things you need to keep in mind. Even if you're a big fan of a certain label and you really want to sign with them, really ask yourself the question, does my music actually fit with this label? You can have the most amazing music, but it might not be the vibe of the label that you actually like. So I've had some tracks on multiple labels as an artist, and those tracks would not fit with the label that I'd actually want to sign with. You want to work with a certain label, but you also have to think about labels. They want to work with artists. In my opinion, it has to be a win-win solution. It's not like you're begging a label to get signed. It's more like you're offering your product to that label to then take it to the next level. And if you have this mindset of, I have a valuable product, I have a good song, I believe in this song, then as soon as whatever label declines your song, you probably won't take it as personal either, because then it might just be a mismatch. You don't hold a grudge against them because you feel like, okay, then it probably wasn't for them. And that doesn't mean that it's not a suitable fit for another label. So think about this. What type of music are they releasing? Does your music fit with the stuff that they're bringing out? A good trick you can do is, if you're making a DJ mix, take like 10 songs, 10 recent releases of the label that you like, and then in between mix in your own track, and then you can instantly tell if it has the same vibe or not. If it doesn't, if it feels out of place, then there's a good chance that they're not gonna sign it. You can of course still send it in and hope for the best, because sometimes people don't really know what they want. So if they hear something new and fresh, then all of a sudden they might just change the style of releases, especially for you. This is also something that we've done at Sekora. I've had some tracks in the past where I was like, I'm not sure if this fits with the label, but I really like it. I really like what this artist has done because it has a unique vibe to it. And we decided to release it anyway, and it became a success. Definitely don't be discouraged if you think your song doesn't fit with the label, but do your due diligence beforehand so you can get a reasonable expectation if they're actually gonna allow it or accept it in general. If you don't do this, then yeah, the chances of getting declined are a lot higher. Then another tip, I think, for doing your due diligence is also being reasonable. So there's a couple of record labels that are super successful, especially melodic house. There's also going to be some other label owners talking about, or some other A&Rs in this course talking about how they get signed to more established labels. My label is an up-and-coming label, and we've been at it for a couple of years. So we tend to also give chances to upcoming artists, and we try to find artists that are on the rise. But once you start approaching a record label that's been out there for a while, or that has a very busy artist roster, there's some record labels, you probably know which ones I'm talking about, that are very popular and very competitive to get signed to. So if you're a starting artist, don't expect to get your first couple tracks signed to these big labels. I think when you're starting out, it's important to find record labels that want to believe in your sound, that want to give you a platform, and that can actually help you grow and establish as an artist. And as soon as you become bigger, you've had a couple tracks out, you've been working at it a couple years, then you can decide, do I want to stay with the people that have actually built up my career and like grow forward together? Or do I now want to give a chance to the bigger label that might be able to take me to the next level? Those are, of course, things you have to decide for yourself after you've been to that point. But try to be reasonable. Do not expect. You can, of course, try, but don't expect to get your first track signed to the biggest of the biggest labels, because those chances are very small. Record label owners, they look at what type of following do you have, how established are you, how consistent in your music are you, how easy are you to work with, all these types of things. So try to match it at the level of where you are in your career, and match that with the height or the popularity of the record label. So when I receive applications or demos for Sekora Music, I usually get everything checked by our team. So we try to give the benefit of having everyone being listened to, so all the demos are getting listened to. But the ones that stick out most are, well, obviously the ones that are a bit more personal. They don't have to be very long, but the ones that are speaking directly to either myself or to my A&R, Greg, those are the ones that stick out. You say something about yourself, where you're from, really short, what your background is within the scene, whether you're new into melodic house or you're advanced in melodic house, how long you've been producing, any other types of genres that you've been making. And then just quickly getting into what your track is about, 1 or 2 sentences, really short, and include a SoundCloud link or Dropbox link. We prefer to use these links in general. We don't really like to listen to Google links or anything else because SoundCloud and Dropbox are the easiest. Plus for you, it's a benefit. If you use SoundCloud, you can see exactly who has listened to your track. So if you send us a demo and you make a private link just for Sekora, for example, or any other record label that you're sending it to, and you can then see if anyone has played it, then you know they've actually listened to your track, and you can then decide if you want to wait for it, wait for review or feedback. If they haven't said anything in let's say a week or 2, then you can follow up on that, kindly reminding them for an answer. I think that would probably be the best way, and it's also the best way to stand out, in my opinion. Just keeping it short and simple, but giving enough details and background so people can get some sort of a recognition and some sort of a personal touch to the email. That for me are the ones that I actually tend to listen to a lot more. And for some reason, some subconscious feeling you get when you get a personal email like that, you tend to listen to the demos more in depth. And you also tend to give these people a lot more attention. So if you want to get the best benefit, just try to keep it personal, really. It doesn't really take that much effort to find out who the owner of the label is or who the A&R is. Just getting any name in there would be great. But let's say you cannot find a personal name, then you would just address it as Hi Team Sekora or Hi Team X record label, if that's the best thing you can do. But to be honest, it's probably very easy to find who the A&Rs are at your favorite record label. Now you already know what my name is, and you also know the name of my A&R. So next time you're sending us a demo, you know exactly how to do it. A couple tips on standing out for a record label owner or an A&R like myself. Well, we tend to always listen to all the tracks that we receive, or at least the A&Rs do, and I check the tracks that get through the first level of filtering. But we check everything, and the ones that stand out the most are usually the artists that are also doing something outside of just making tracks. And this can be super easy, maybe even easier than making a track yourself. It's just making mixes, building your own brand, making videos, just doing a little breakdown of how you made a track, or doing some videos or some pictures of you working in the studio. Because it's very easy for me if I find a demo, and then of course you see the SoundCloud, how many followers does someone have on SoundCloud. It might intrigue you, but if someone doesn't have a lot of followers, that's also fine because it shows that you're building. But at least if I then check your Instagram, or to get an idea of who am I working with, how serious are they, if I can then find you have mixes on there, I can see that you're maybe doing DJ gigs, or you're going to networking events, so you're trying to make a name for yourself in the music industry, in the music business. It gives a certain indication that you're very serious about your career, because there's a lot of people making music nowadays. It's become super easy to produce tracks, and even high quality tracks. I think there's thousands of songs uploaded to Spotify daily. So standing out is very important, and nowadays you cannot stand out with good music alone. As unfair as it sounds, that's just the harsh reality of the music industry. You need to have some sort of an edge on the outside as well. You need to have a full experience for your fans. As soon as you release a track, what else can they listen to? So having mixes online, having maybe even your own radio show, if that's really something that you like to do, or doing track deconstructions, or working with other artists, anything you can do around building your own profile and brand is something that can definitely be a benefit when you're sending out tracks to record labels. Absolute no-goes would probably be if someone sends me an email with no subject line and just a link. That's okay. So I do say that I listen to everything. I have one exception. If you just send only a link, those do not get listened to. They get trashed immediately, because it shows you have no intention of putting any effort. And it sometimes boggles my mind too, is that you put in so much effort and time into creating your personal piece of music, and then the final steps that can really make or break your career, you neglect everything and just send a link or make it so unpersonal that people don't even really want to respond to it. So that's an absolute no-go. At least say something about yourself or about your track when you're addressing someone in an email. And just think about it. I mean, you've learned it in school, you've learned how to make business emails or how to write your family or friends. At least do something. So don't just send a link, at least include some sort of a story with it. So when I'm receiving demos, there's a couple of things that I look at. Would be in order of the musicality, originality of the song, but also the production quality. And they all sort of rank equally in my opinion. But if I have to choose one, it would probably be musicality. I have a strong opinion that everything has been done before, and most new songs are a combination of different genres or different influences that you've had. Any of your favorite artists probably had some inspiration of their favorite artists, so it all trickles down to whoever's making the track now. They've all aspired to be some other producer, and it doesn't really matter as much if you sound a little bit like someone else. But having some sort of musicality in there that sort of gives it a vibe of uniqueness, that's what I tend to look at a lot more than the production quality. Because the thing is, when I think about the artists that we signed, a lot of them, they weren't as technical when it comes to production quality when they first sent in their demos. But I can listen past that. But if a track is nicely produced, but it just doesn't grab me, like the melody doesn't grab me, or the ideas used, or the sounds used, I can't really listen past it, that sort of turns me off. And you get this feeling, I mean, you can analyze it technically, but a song, it has to have some sort of emotion to it. And if it's lacking that emotion, so the musicality, if that's not in there, then no production quality can ever fix that. And then of course, if the song is also nicely produced, that's a win-win and we sign it. But most of the time, the demos we get in, they're not finished. And to get into the sort of in progress and the feedback rounds that we do with our artists, you have to have some musicality to your song. It needs to stand out, it needs to make you feel something, it needs to have some sort of a catchy hook. I can honestly tell, I'd say 95 or 90% of the tracks that we receive, demos, even from the artists that have already been releasing on our label, they all get changed or altered in some sort of way. Whether it be increasing the production quality, or doing an extra mix down, or having some external mastering done, or maybe changing a synth or some of the drums. That type of stuff you can listen past, but if the idea and the foundation of the song is not good, or it doesn't just click with me, because it's also a personal taste, then it doesn't work for me, and then I'd probably have to decline it. But it doesn't mean that you're not a good producer. It just means that this song in particular is not resonating with the A&R that is listening to it. So when it comes to social media, and this also includes Spotify in my opinion, because it almost is a social media platform, just anything that you're doing as an artist, you should expect people that are following you to want to know about you. They want to learn about you, what you're doing, what you're up to, because they're following your music and they're also interested in what you're doing behind the scenes. So treat your social media not depending on if you sign with a record label or not. Treat your social media as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. I always say that as an artist, you're also a business owner. Your artist profile technically is a business. So try to also run it as a business. You're selling a product, you're offering a service, a certain value to your fans, your customers. And that's how I think you should also treat your social media. So instead of only looking at what can I do to increase my chances of getting signed to a record label, start to really build your own brand and start to put in effort into your own social media and releasing your own tracks. And even if you cannot get your first couple tracks signed to the record label that you want, maybe find another record label that does want to release it. Or you can also decide if you want to release it yourself, of course. It's become a lot easier nowadays to release your own music. And if you can make it work by self-releasing music, then it shows that you have the tools and the skills to build your own brand, to build your own audience. that's the funny thing. As soon as you start building your own fan base, you start doing your own thing, you'll be surprised on the labels that are actually going to be reaching out to you and trying to get you signed. And in my opinion, that's the strongest position you can be in, when a label reaches out to you and they want to sign you instead of you reaching out to them. What I always tend to look for, especially in the house and melodic house scene, is that I try to find certain hooks and phrases in tracks that create a certain memorability. When I started out in my music career, I got this really good tip that always stuck with me while I was making and producing my own tracks, and I tend to also take that advice to the tracks that we get with Sekora and the tracks that we sign with Sekora, is that there's always something memorable in the track. And the advice that I got years ago was, in your breakdowns, if you listen to your own breakdown and you get the idea that it's not really moving forward, there's nothing special happening, you have to sort of imagine yourself, you're standing in a club, and as soon as the breakdown comes in, are people actually curious to what's coming next? Are they anticipating? Are you building enough tension? Are you really teasing the audience to stay hooked and listen to what's coming next in the song? Or do you see them go to the bar and grab a drink? So in the breakdowns is usually where I try to convince the listeners to stick around, to wait for that drop, to wait for that climax that's coming in the song. And if I don't hear this in a demo that I receive, if I don't hear that little riff or that little hook that catches my attention, that really sends those chills up my spine, that's usually an indication that it's either lacking or it's just not for us. So sometimes we do get tracks that don't have this yet, but I can see the potential, and then we give the advice or the feedback to incorporate something like this. But now that you're already getting these tips, I can just tell you beforehand, if you get something catchy in a breakdown, something unique, some sort of sound or little riff or ear candy that you can only hear in certain parts of your track, that people want to come back to, that people recognize, that people listen to in a DJ set and they're like, oh, this is cool, I want to Shazam this, or this is cool, I want to check this out when I get back home. That's the stuff I look for when I'm signing tracks. So if you incorporate this in your music and I hear this in the demo, I can instantly hear it, that's something that will definitely put you on the top of my mind. The next part would be the amount of improvement that you're making with your production. So the perfect scenario would be you being an amazing producer and you've gone through all the courses and you've done all the mixing and mastering, and you would be the most amazing mixing, mastering engineer you could be. But most of the time that's not the case. But at least if I can hear that with the demos that you're sending, you're making a certain progress, you're putting in the time, the effort to show your dedication to becoming the best producer you can possibly be, then I can see definitely that there's improvement there. So if the track doesn't get signed right away, I tell my team, hey, this is a person that you should put on your radar, like look out for them, try to keep working with them, ask them to send more demos, to stay in touch. And eventually those are the ones that also get signed to the record label. I think a good example is someone that we signed recently to the record label. He was an upcoming artist. He was in a lot of communities and producer forums, following a lot of courses, really honing his skills and really dedicating to improving. He kept on sending demos for our feedback sessions that we do on my YouTube channel, for example, but also sending in tracks in the community. And in the beginning, he had nice ideas and the productions were all right, but they weren't quite there yet. And then a couple months ago, he sent in a track to the feedback stream, and I just instantly could tell that he improved so much in such a short time because he was so dedicated in improving his sound, that even though the track wasn't finished, I told him to send it in as a demo officially. And we got to working with him by sending him feedback and giving him detailed tips and tricks on how to improve. And eventually that was the first track that he signed to our record label. And now next month we're actually following up with the upcoming track. So it shows that even though you're not there yet on a production level, as long as you show some sort of indication that you're progressing, you're working hard to honing your skills and craft, that is what puts you on the radar of A&Rs. And trust me, once you're on the radar, you're not easily forgotten. Again, to summarize, you might get rejected now, but that doesn't mean that you're rejected in the long term. So anything you can do now to improve your chances of staying on the radar will also improve the chances of you getting signed to your favorite record label.